This is the day we have been given, despite how hot it is. So let us be glad. Please rise in body and or in spirit to sing hymn number 1000 in the Teal hymnal, Morning Has Come. Good morning. Welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church, a liberal religious community where love works. Please know that whoever you are, wherever you are from, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, and whatever your gender identity, beliefs, or immigration status, you are welcome here. We appreciate your sharing the gift of your presence this morning as we gather in worship. A special welcome to those joining our service online, either via live stream in the moment or catching up with us later. We're glad to have you with us. If you're new to Cedar Lane and feel comfortable doing so, would you please raise your hand so we may recognize and welcome you? I did notice a few new faces, so welcome, welcome. We're glad you joined us for worship this morning, and please hold up your hand for just a moment longer so our ushers may find you and offer you a small token of our appreciation. Included in your gift is a brochure that gives more information about Cedar Lane, and if you wouldn't mind filling out the last page and dropping it in the collection plate, we would appreciate it. Your presence here is the greatest gift, and we thank you for being here. So let's pause for a moment and offer our guests a warm Cedar Lane welcome. Welcome. All are invited to stay after service to enjoy coffee and conversation, and if you choose to use a yellow mug, our members will make sure to greet you. Because here at Cedar Lane, every member is a member of the membership team, right? No, I say this because I've heard from some of our guests that they have picked up a yellow mug and have stood by themselves, communing by themselves. Yes, so I hope we will correct that. Anyway, I also would like to draw your attention to the announcements page that you may have picked up on your way in. Just gives you an idea of who we are and also the many things that are happening around campus in the next couple of weeks. And if you have a pastoral need or concern today, Helen Pekacek is our pastoral visitor who will be available during and after the service if you would like to check in. And she is available by our Joys and Sorrows Candles table. And now, in keeping with the spirit of deepening your connection to community, please turn and greet your neighbors, especially our guests. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, it's fine. Good morning. How are you? Good morning. Good morning. Oops. Good morning. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour. In one strong body, gathered here in the spiritual and the power, Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit, draw near. As we gather together, may we remember, when you share with me what is most important to you,
that is where listening begins.
When I show you that I hear you, when I say your life matters,
that is where compassion begins.
When I open the door to greet you,
that is where hospitality begins.
When I venture out to bring you to shelter,
that is where love begins.
When I risk my comfort to ease your suffering, when I act against hatred, violence, injustice,
that is where courage begins.
When we experience the full presence of each other because of our shared humanity, because of our differences,
that is where holy gratitude begins.
May this space be a table
that is not complete until we are all welcome.
May this table be a space of beauty where together we create a series of miracles and
where all that we share is sacred.
Come, let us worship together.
As Rod and Sue come forward to kindle the chalice, a symbol of our faith and gathered community, please rise in body or in spirit to share the chalice lighting words printed in your order of celebration. In faith, together, we light this small flame, symbol of the sun's enormous power, whose energy burns so brightly in these deep days of summer. We bask in its warmth and heat, with lighted hearts and quickened sense,
in gratitude
and in faith.
Please be seated.
We gather, as we always gather, in sacred space, a place set aside as a sanctuary amid the many challenges of life, a center from which we may gather strength to face these challenges with courage and grace, faith and love. In this time of remembrance, we lift up those in our community who are living through significant passages, the small and extraordinary milestones of life. Let us pause to be present to our spiritual companions and to the concerns of our own hearts. Within our Cedar Lane community, thank yous to all the volunteers who moved topsoil last week and those who made book donations to Oscar Ferguson Osborne's Eagle Scout project. Only Unitarians could give so many books to an Eagle Scout project. Our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to those whose lives are lost or impacted by calamities and violence in our world, including the 30 victims of the arson in the Japanese animation studio. In the midst of calamities and crises here on planet Earth, we pause to acknowledge and lift up human potential, imagination, risk-taking, courage, collaboration, and achievement when Neil Armstrong took the first steps on the moon, July 20th, 1969. 50 years later, may we attempt a new endeavor that they'll be celebrating in 2069.
Time, bringing our mind, body, and spirit more fully into this space, made sacred by our presence and the presence of the holy. Would you join me in the spirit of prayer and reflection? Nameless one of many names, and who is beyond all naming. We arrive from different places to this sacred ground of communal caring. We are enriched by the company of each other and are drawn closer to the heart of love in this time of service. Spirit of kindness and compassion, be with us in the joys and sorrows of our lives. Comfort us, challenge us, companion us, and guide us. Help us find the courage to live with the sorrow of loss and to reach out in sympathy and need. Spirit that glows in the darkness, expand our vision with faith, so we may always remember the unending circle of life and death and love reborn that surround us with kindness and compassion. Expand our vision with hope, so we may always remember the unending circle of which we are a part. Grant us dreams so great and numerous that we might spend the fullness of our days to realize them. Spirit that glistens in the light, bless this community that shares so generously with their hands and their hearts. keep us ever mindful of the powerful possibilities of love as we journey through all the seasons of our lives. May the peace of the world's beauty restore us, and the vision of the world at peace provoke us ever onward. In the name of all that is holy, life-affirming, and life-sustaining, we say Shalom, Salam, Om Shanti, Amen, blessed be. As we enter the silence together, those among us who are mourning a loss or marking the anniversary of a loss of a loved one are invited to rise in body and or in spirit until the hymn. Let us enter the silence together. As the ushers come forward to give and receive an offering to sustain the mission and ministry of Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church, I invite us to reflect on the deeper meanings and purpose of what a faith community such as ours brings, and to move from that place with gratitude and the spirit of generosity. Our offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Please turn to reading number 657 in the gray hymnal and respond with the verses in italics. Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged.
Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies.
Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding children's days with fears of unknown calamities.
Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness.
Some beliefs are divisive, separating the saved from the unsaved, friends from enemies.
Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern.
Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction.
Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration.
Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness.
Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth.
Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world.
Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life.
In the Talmud of the Jewish tradition, the sage Hillel said, "What is hateful to you, do not do to others." This is the whole of the law. All the rest is commentary.
In the Hindu legend of the Mahabharata, the divine Krishna declared, "This is the sum of duty. Do nothing unto others which would cause you pain if done to you."
It is written, it is taught. May it be so.
Many windows, one light, many waters, one sun. All lifted hearts are free.
In the Gospel of Matthew, in the Christian scriptures, the Messiah Jesus says, "Whatever you wish that others would do to you, do so to them."
In the Buddhist text of the Udanavarga, the student is urged, "Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful."
It is written, it is taught. May it be so.
Many waters, one light, many waters, one sea. All lifted hearts
Hadith of Al-Nawawi, the Prophet Muhammad teaches, "No one of you is a believer until he desires for his brother that which he desires for himself."
In the Taishang treatise of Taoism, the seeker is instructed, regard your neighbor's gain as your gain, and your neighbor's loss as your own loss.
It is written, it is taught, may it be so.
In the ancient wisdom of Shinto, there is a saying, the heart of the person before you is a mirror. See there your own form.
The Oglala Lakota spiritual leader, Black Elk, wrote, "All things are our relatives. What we do to everything, we do to ourselves."
It is written, it is taught, may it be so.
Many windows, one light, many waters, one sounding, all lifted hearts are free.
Shalom, Hasiti, Salam, Ewa, Dohidi, Pax, Pagomir, Shanti, 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 Shalom, Hasiti, Salam, Ewa, Dohidi, Pax, Pagomir.
Thank you, members of the choir, Henry and Jasmine, for that beautiful hymn that really lifts up our theological diversity. So last week, I reflected on doubt, and I shared with you that I would come back this Sunday to talk about faith, or more specifically about Unitarian Universalist faith. So the late Douglas Adams is well known among science fiction fans for his comedic 5-novel series about Arthur Dent, an Englishman who is rescued just moments before the destruction of Earth in order for an intergalactic highway to be built. Now, Dent is whisked away in his bathrobe by a friend who turns out to be an alien in disguise. And the two of them then roam the entire galaxy, assisted by a travel guide, similar to the ones we find in bookstores and now online. Now, the first book in the series, the most famous of all 5, is titled Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So, some of the folks who come through our doors have described their experience as being rather like Arthur Dent being taken out of his comfortable surroundings and dropped into alien territory. Which brings me to the point that I feel we need a Unitarian Universalist guide, a hitchhiker's guide, if you will, to Unitarian Universalism, in order to support people, to give them more courage in their confusions, as well as their uncertainties, as they try to figure out who we are, what we believe, and how we do church. Because while it is true, in some ways, we are a congregation that is unique, we also come off looking like any other Protestant church. And you see, that's part of the problem. Because just when people think they have a handle on things, something or the other trips them up, leaving them feeling more off balance than before. Take our worship service, for example. At first blush, our service looks like a regular hymn sandwich. You know, we sing a hymn, then there are some words. We have music, there are more words. We sing another hymn, then we do something else, more words and music. You get the image. Now, this is something that people are familiar with. That's what you see in Protestant congregations. And then you get to those hymns. The hymn tunes sound familiar. But then as you start singing, you realize the words are completely different. For example, you know, number 114 in our gray hymnal goes, "Forward through the ages in unbroken line, move the faithful spirits at the call divine." I'm not going to sing it. You don't want me to sing. You know, gifts in differing measure, hearts of one accord. Now, it's a beautiful hymn. And then you realize that is the tune for Onward Christian Soldiers. So, and then the other one is number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth, which starts off in familiar ways. For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. And then it goes, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. So, and then you start reading ahead to learn the new words, which is when you notice something really peculiar, that your neighbors are also doing the same. And that's when you find out that Unitarian Universalists are people who like to read ahead in order to see if they agree with the words or not in our hymns. And then we get to the prayer, and then you hear ministers begin prayers by saying, "To whom it may concern." And then you get to the social hall after the service. That's when you're completely freaked out, because you see people lining up reverentially with their mugs in front of the coffee pot singing, "Coffee, coffee, we adore thee. Java glory, Java love. Brains awake like flowers before thee. Raise our mugs to God above." You know. Anyway. And part of what you get used to here, at least, is the minister subjecting you to bad jokes, which you have to suffer through as part of what he likes to call reflections. Anyway, to address some of these issues and confusions, I try to do a reflection every summer that introduces our faith. A reflection on who we are, what we're about, and how we go about living out our Unitarian Universalist faith. Well, this is a reflection intended for newcomers and our guests. It is also for those of you who have been here for a while, to kind of refresh your memory about what some of our core values and convictions are. Ours is a progressive religion. that has its roots in two liberal Protestant denominations, Unitarianism and Universalism, that has its roots that go all the way to the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century in Europe, but these two movements developed here in the North American context in the 19th century. Unitarianism affirmed the unity and just and loving character of God, the moral and reasoning capacity of people, and working out one's salvation with diligence. Unitarians believed in the humanity of Jesus, seeing him as a wise teacher, prophet, and moral exemplar. Meanwhile, Universalism proclaimed the gospel of God's unconditional love, the inclusiveness of Jesus' message, and universal salvation. A loving God, Universalists insisted, would never condemn people to eternal damnation. Thomas Starr King, a 19th century minister, fellowshipped as both a Unitarian and a Universalist, came perilously close to the truth when he quipped, Universalists believe that God is too good to damn people, and Unitarians believe that they are too good to be damned. Now, the two denominations consolidated in 1961 to form the Unitarian Universalist Association. Today, Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal, non-dogmatic, covenantal, value-centered religion that is organized around a set of 7 principles and purposes. We draw religious and spiritual inspiration from a variety of theological sources: mystical, prophetic, humanist, world religion, and earth-centered. Despite our theological diversity that respects the integrity of individual perspective and belief, we do share some values and convictions in common. Here are some of them. We affirm and promote that each and every person matters, that everyone has inherent worth and dignity, no exceptions, that all people have an equal claim to life, liberty, and justice. We affirm and promote freedom of thought and expression, that all individuals should be encouraged to develop a personal theology and to openly present their religious opinions and beliefs without fear of censure or reprisal. We affirm and promote the authority of reason and conscience and a free, responsible, and disciplined search for truth and meaning. And from this place, we dare to doubt, to question, to practice holy curiosity, to be faithful doubters. We wonder, we investigate, we ask questions, and we seek to learn. We affirm and promote life. Our faith calls us to say yes to life and to live it fully. It provides us with the tools to take on the tensions and pressures that life brings. We are reminded that the problem we face is not how to live without anxiety, but learn how to live with it. And we accept the tensions that life brings because we see that as an offer to be challenged, to live creatively and compassionately. And so we affirm and promote life before death. We're focused on the here and now of this world and how to live, in the words of the poet, this one wild and precious life, this ordinary life, extraordinarily well. We affirm and promote unity, unity of existence, a unity that affirms that there is no fundamental conflict between the sacred and secular, faith and reason, since they all have their source in the same reality. A unity that affirms the unity of all life, all that exists, that calls to us to come together and to share with one another, to care for one another, to struggle together to work out a more humane and sensible way of living, to comfort each other in our sadness and in the face of death, and to live out the undenying unity that transcends all our differences. Now, this unity does not mean uniformity or sameness. It's not unity in the sense of total erasure of personality, nor is it unity in a fascist sense. Instead, it's a unity that recognizes that we each are unique and different, shaped by different forces with different personal hopes, dreams, and fears. And our goal, our hope, is to be witness to the reality of these differences instead of being divided by them. And that we come together and learn and grow from that awareness, and that we are made richer and more whole by that unity in diversity. So our goal is to be diverse without becoming divided. In other words, our goal is e pluribus unum, out of many, one. It's not only our national motto, but our faiths as well. The challenge, of course, of seeking unity while respecting diversity, we know has played a critical role in shaping our nation's history, our American culture, and our national character. But we also know that division can be a problem all too well, that there is a precarious balance between unity and diversity in our country that we witness now socially, politically, and religiously. And this is where I'm going to digress for a moment. So we're all well aware of what came from those tweets last Sunday. The racist, xenophobic, sexist, and disrespectful messages that President Trump sent out seeking to disparage and tell those 4 congresswomen of color to go back to their countries. It was hard for me, personally, as somebody who has experienced that during my time in this country, that my family and I have received those taunts in various ways over the years. It was still hard to see that coming from the president, saying it out in public, followed by that rally in North Carolina, where I was witness to another aspect of our nation that sometimes rears its ugly head, that nativist aspect. It was hard, yet it was also a blessing to be witness to the reality that we are confronted with. It also made me realize, why is it that I continue to be a Unitarian Universalist? Because despite all that I have encountered in this country, living here, being told to go back, I have found affirmation, welcome, and acceptance in this faith. It is that aspect that has kept me both grounded and present in this faith tradition, not as a minister, but more as a person of faith. I lift it up because sometimes it is easy for us to lose sight of that essential principle that has been a bedrock principle within Unitarian Universalism, that has always been countercultural as a quintessential American faith, a faith that people like me have felt drawn to and find nurture and support in. Because it has been countercultural in reacting to that aspect of American culture that likes to be monocultural, that tries to differentiate between citizen or alien, saved or damned, sinful or saved, saint. Those kinds of looking at things in either or ways, our faith has continually said, no, it is not the way, and instead has pointed to a different way. So, it is this commitment to unity in diversity that calls us also to affirm and promote the interconnectedness and the interdependent web of all existence. This is what calls us to care for creation, the earth, and all beings on this planet. And when we recognize that everything is connected, we are inspired to be mindful of the effects of our actions. And it is this commitment to unity in diversity that calls us to affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion. Our faith calls us to dare to name what is broken, to speak up against unjust laws that seek to undermine or eliminate people's right to liberty and justice, laws that promote inequality, to challenge assumptions and to take actions that require us to be uncomfortable, to resist again and again the powers and principalities that seek to oppress, demean, and dehumanize, so that we might contribute more effectively to the repair and transformation of our world. And our faith calls us to affirm and promote love, to do this work in love, that we believe in the force of love that is the governing principle in human relationships, which seeks us to help and heal, never to hurt or destroy. These are some of the guiding values and convictions that continue to support the way in which we live our lives as Unitarian Universalists. The Reverend Forrest Church, who served All Souls Unitarian in New York City, provides a wonderful explanation of Unitarian Universalism through his Cathedral of the World metaphor. The anthem that the choir sang is drawn from that. Church explains that our Unitarian heritage points to the existence of one light, one mystery, one interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. But that single light, he says, shines through countless windows, each of which reveals an important portion, but only a portion of that light. And he says our Universalist heritage affirms the dignity and worth of those different windows and urges us to open our minds and hearts to the light and truth that each contains. And so he defines Unitarian Universalism as one light, Unitarianism, shining through many windows, Universalism, illuminating human minds and hearts in many different ways. And in our congregations, we honor this truth by encouraging each other to reflect on the light through whatever set of windows they might come through. We only require that this freedom be honored for others as well. Which is why we choose to join together rather than exercise our full freedom to believe what we will in the privacy of our own homes on Sunday mornings. It is also because we are a relational faith, because experience teaches us that we need one another, that we need guidance in recognizing our tears in one another's eyes. We need prompting to raise our sights and companions in the work of love and justice, to care for our neighbors, and to strengthen our witness in the world. So these are some of the reasons why we gather together to celebrate our faith. The question is, will we recognize the mystery of this possibility that we each have found and cherish? Will we be open to the opportunities that invite us to share this message in the world? Will we, as a faith, go boldly where no faith has gone before? Now, these are not questions. These are the spiritual imperatives that we are faced with in these days and times, where we are being called to abandon prejudgment, to resist the temptation to maintain the status quo, and learn to listen and hear each other more deeply. They are the program and the means for us who are committed to justice and equity to be able to go out and witness to these values in the world. So I close with this excerpt from a sermon that the Dr. Diana Eck, professor of world religions at Harvard, delivered at the Reverend Galen Gingrich's installation at All Souls in New York City in October 2007. Now, Dr. Eck is herself a Methodist and is a world's leading scholar in Hinduism. But she called on Unitarian Universalists to take seriously our place in the religious landscape of America, saying, "I believe that Unitarian Universalists have a very important role in this new religious America and the new millennium of the world in which we live. You are," she said, "in my estimation, the church of the new millennium. In this era, Unitarian Universalism is not the lowest common denominator, but the highest common calling. In a world divided by race and by religion and ideology, the very presence of a church like this, committed to the oneness of God, the love of neighbor, and service to humanity, is a beacon. The Unitarian Universalist theology, and yes, you have one, does not reduce the mystery of the divine, the transcendent, but amplifies it, broadens it to include the investigation of the many, many ways in which the divine is known and yet unknown. The world," she concluded, "is in need of your theology. The world today is in need of our theology. So may it be." Amen. And in a UU service, you come in thinking you have a fair idea of what's going to happen, and then the minister says, "Let us sing a different hymn." in honor of the moon landing, the 50th anniversary, I invite us to rise in body or in spirit to sing hymn number 1064, Blue Boat Home, in the Teal hymnal. Wow. Let these words of our Universalist foremother, Olympia Brown, the first woman to be awarded full ministerial standing by an American denomination in 1865, be our inspiration. Stand by this faith, work for it, sacrifice for it. There is nothing in all the world so important as to be loyal to this faith, a faith which has comforted us in sorrow, strengthened us for noble duty, and made the world more beautiful. Do not demand immediate results, but rejoice that we are worthy to be entrusted with this great message. Go on finding ever new applications of these truths and new enjoyments in their contemplation, always trusting in the one God which ever lives and loves. Go in peace, go making peace, live gently, love mightily, and bow to the mystery. Please be seated for the postlude.